The 2026 World Cup won't be decided by climate, altitude, or travel, but those factors will quietly influence how the game is played at the highest level. Because for the first time in World Cup history, teams won't just adapt to opponents, they'll also adapt to entirely different environments across three countries. Across the United States, Mexico, and Canada, matches will take place in very different conditions, some in extreme heat, some at high altitude, some after long cross-country travel, and none of those factors change who the best teams are, but they can change how consistently those teams perform. At this level, small changes matter: a slight drop in intensity, a few percent slower recovery, a little less precision in the final minutes. That's often the difference between control and chaos in knockout football. In some US and Mexican cities, summer conditions can be hot and humid. That doesn't change tactics directly, but it does affect the physical side of the game. Recovery between sprints becomes harder, energy management becomes more important, and match intensity can naturally drop late on. So instead of changing football completely, it can subtly affect the rhythm of matches. And that shift often shows up where it matters most, not at the start of games, but in the final 20 to 30 minutes. Some matches will be played at high altitude in Mexico. At higher elevations, there is less oxygen in the air. Players don't suddenly lose ability, but they do feel quicker fatigue during repeated runs, slower recovery between actions, and increased difficulty maintaining intensity. The effect isn't dramatic at first, but it can influence how matches feel as they go on. And just as teams adjust to climate, they have to adjust again. Because this tournament doesn't stay in one place. The World Cup will span three countries. That means teams may deal with long-distance flights, changing time zones, and limited recovery time between matches. This doesn't affect every team equally, but it does affect consistency, especially across the group stage. Squad depth and rotation become more important than in a single-location tournament. So what does all of this actually change? Not the quality of football, but the way performance holds up across a tournament. Top teams like France, England, Brazil, Spain, Germany, and Argentina don't become better or worse because of the environment. Instead, some matches suit their style more than others, physical demands vary depending on location, and squad rotation becomes more important. In short, success depends more on adaptation than dominance. The host nations also feel these conditions differently. The United States brings logistical familiarity with large travel distances and varied climates. Mexico's altitude and environment are familiar in key venues. Canada offers cooler, more stable conditions. None of this guarantees results, but it reduces the level of unfamiliar adjustment. So when people watch the 2026 World Cup, the focus will still be on tactics, players, and moments of brilliance. But underneath all of that, environment will quietly influence how those moments happen. The 2026 World Cup won't be defined by climate, terrain, or travel, but it will be shaped by them. And in a tournament where margins are already small, even subtle factors can matter.